All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Crossing Swords. As always, I'm Andrew.
And I'm just completely exhausted over the last few weeks. Obviously, we've been off, couple of scheduling issues. I've been a bit...
Yeah, it's just shit
had
work
my own
schedules.
issues.
You've had your own issues.
I've been ill.
Oh,
officially
shit.
speaking. Legally speaking.
Why? What was wrong?
The Rona got me.
Another one.
Another bit of COVID.
Another bit of COVID.
Yeah.
Second bout, baby.
Yeah, and you beat it.
Well, 2 times.
Yeah.
I'm 2 for 2.
2 for 2.
I'm like OJ in court cases.
Yeah.
Actually, I think he actually went to prison in the end for
He did go to prison.
armed robbery.
Yeah.
So I'm not like OJ.
No, you're not like OJ.
I'm still fighting.
Your court cases are still pending.
I'm fighting for my life.
You literally were, Jay, and you survived, and you should be proud of yourself.
I'm pretty proud. I did very well. I think
Yeah.
I should get, something.
There you go. You've got a round of applause for fighting off COVID.
Like
Let's
it.
just let it go out
Let it die down.
naturally.
Let it die down naturally. Yeah.
Yeah.
All
Not
we
like
wanna
I
let
can
the-
just press a button or something and there's
It's all we have
it's a throngs of fans.
what people don't see is behind the camera the crowd
Yeah.
sitting there
Yeah.
ready to. And then do you know what? They're sort of like the crowd in Shrek. They just go on our command.
Yeah.
They
With the cues.
Yeah, they don't react to themselves.
Yeah.
They just.
I
go
mean,
based
like, if
on
we had a
us.
sitcom, we would obviously have a laugh track.
I mean, arguably that would probably be our genre of sitcom. Is sitcom.
Yeah. How would that work? Or is
Sort of
that- is
like
that for
a
another
a
pod?
funny porno,
Okay.
but like
comedic
soft porn,
porno.
tasty porn.
So are we actually
No,
going to show
tasteful porn.
penetration and people's pubic regions, or are we going to keep it strictly?
Me and Frank Reynolds know that that's what the people want. Full on penetration. That's what the people want to see.
It's all people ever want is full on penetration.
What the people wanna
Just
see.
from the moment they exit the vehicle, they want to get back
That's
in.
all they want. That's all
Yeah.
they want. You good? How have you been, my man?
I've been all right. I had a nice surprise from the tax man. A nice surprise. I completely forgot.
Hand job?
No.
That would have been a
Even
nice surprise,
better.
though, wouldn't it?
It would have been. I would have been like the man knocks on the door.
So-
This is
Thanks, man.
This is your yearly toss off.
Yeah,
from
well,
me.
congratulations, Sarah,
And
on
I'm just
a good
like,
year well
what?
earned.
But yeah, so I got a nice surprise from the tax man. I'm getting back a fair chunk of money, which speeds
Nice.
up the process of me and Leanne getting our own place, which is good. So yeah, I'm in a good place.
Nice. And do you have a sound queued up for if I say that particular person's name?
You can do.
So if I were to say I'm looking forward to, you and Leanne getting a place.
Keep my wife's name out your fucking mouth!
Sorry, Will. I'll do my best.
Yeah. No talking about Jada.
I would never. I would never.
Do you know what though? If I was a stand-up comedian and I ever had
Oh, the
Will Smith, in it,
temptation.
you'd
Yeah,
have to.
you'd
There's
have
no
to.
way.
You'd have to.
Otherwise, you're bitching out.
I'd sort of fish for him to mention my name and then tell him to keep it out of his fucking mouth. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then,
Like if I was ever in an interview with him or something like that, if he said my name, yeah, can you keep my name out your
Yeah,
mouth,
can you
please?
just-
That would not go
absolutely.
well, would it? Just
Oh,
get
he'd never come back
slapped
for a
on
second one.
television. He would slap you though, I think. Still,
But
I
then
think
I
he'd
can-
do it again.
Then I can reach out to Chris Rock and ask if he wants to start a club.
Do a tour with him. Talking
I'd be
about
great.
it.
The slap by Will Smith tour.
I'm on board. I'm here for it. Right, so guys, to get a bit more serious, I suppose. There was only really one thing we could talk about while we've been gone. There's been a lot going on in politics, and yeah, Jake, tell them what we're going to talk about.
Well, for starters, I would say a lot is probably the understatement of the year.
Yeah,
There has been so much shit going down
yeah.
in the last couple of weeks. I mean, where do we start? Look, okay.
I mean, it started with what rattled it all off, which was a scandal of a man called Chris Pincher.
Yep, nominative determinism there.
Yeah, which, and as Boris himself said, Pincher by name, Pincher by
Pinch by nature.
by
Was
nature.
basically groped a couple of male colleagues.
Yeah,
And by all accounts, this is not the first time this has
no,
happened.
and it was his
It had been raised to Boris back when he was
Yeah.
Foreign Secretary.
and he worked under him then.
and Boris knew about it and had nicknames for him and
Yeah.
still promoted him to a high rank.
He ended
So-
up becoming the whip, didn't he?
And the
One of the
the
whips.
thing is, and I said this at the time, it's like, I can't believe all the shit that Boris has, like,
And that was the
Had.
thing that sealed it.
that was the thing that seemed
Something
to trigger
that
this.
technically, other than the
And
fact
then
he
we
just
got,
ignored it.
An absolute cascade of resignations.
Yeah, I mean, more resignations under one prime minister than anyone else.
Sunak and Javid kicked it off,
Yeah,
as, I believe, Chancellor and Health Minister.
yeah,
And then just fucking everyone quit. I mean, cabinet members, there weren't too
Junior
many cabinet
members.
members. There were a few.
Yeah.
But yeah, junior ministers, advisors, aides just tumbled. I think it was like over 50. I
And
think
like,
it was
there
like
was
52 or something.
genuinely talks people were worried about, well, right now, we basically don't have a working government.
I mean, the record, by the way, for governmental resignations in a 24-hour span, or in a one lump sum, but particularly 24-hour span, was 6 back in 1930. That caused quite a scandal, and it stood for, you know, what are we looking at, 90 years.
And how many was it Boris had in the end?
About 34 in one 24-hour period, and then it rose to about 50, about 52, something like that.
Yeah, by the end of it.
It was a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot of people. I mean, that's basically, what was it? It was a quarter of the Conservative Party.
Yeah. My favourite one, by the way, a moment amongst, or two. One, everyone was quitting and resigning, and I mean everyone was quitting and resigning, and in amongst it, Michael Gove got sacked.
Imagine being
not
that
quit,
guy.
Sacked.
Imagine being that, because basically what he was hoping for was to stick around, but be like, come on, mate, it's time to go. He wanted to do the Claude from Arsenal Fan TV.
And Nadeem Zahawi, who was appointed as, I think, and I might get this right, Chancellor of the Exchequer.
He was,
on Tuesday evening after Rishi Sunak's resignation.
Yeah.
And on the Wednesday morning, spoke to Boris Johnson and told him it was time to go.
Yeah.
And publicly told him it was time to go.
Yeah,
Not just like behind closed
doors.
doors.
Took the job and then put the knife in.
Took his promotion. Thanks very much, mate. You know, I'll absolutely do the job. I can't wait.
But I want you to go.
You should leave though. Yeah, you probably shouldn't be under you. Thanks for the promotion. But
just imagine, like, Boris watches him walk into the cabinet office. He sits down at his chair, quite proud of himself, and he goes, "How are you doing, Nadeem?" Like, do you know what? I'm doing all right, but I do think you need to leave. And he's just like, "What?" And he was like, "Yeah, you should go."
Yeah, it's like, you know, how you doing? Nadeem, yeah, very well. Yeah, good seat at the table. You're liking it?
Yeah.
Feels pretty good. Looks good on you, my man. Yeah. How's your seat, Boris? Oh no, very good, thanks. Yeah, no, it looks a little uncomfortable.
Yeah,
it's like maybe a little well worn.
It'd be better for you if you
maybe it's time that seat was occupied by someone else.
Yeah, he's like, well, I could get another chair. No. The problem is you, not the chair.
Yeah, you need to go, bro.
Yeah, I thought it was brilliant, and I've watched a few political commentators talk about it since, and they were saying that pre that move, he was one of the most popular figures in the Conservative Party, and overnight went from being a front runner to potentially replace Boris to going out in the first round.
I mean, yeah, and listen, and then what followed that was Boris was like, nope, I'm sticking it out, that's fine, even though everyone had quit and everyone was telling him to leave. And then on the Thursday, he finally came out at lunchtime.
Yeah.
And this is, I think, in the most truest Boris/Trump fashion ever, in that kind of vein of politician. He managed to resign without resigning. He resigned without saying the words, "I'm resigning."
Or apologising.
Or actually leaving office, because he's actually going to stay as the Prime Minister for another, like, at least 2 months. Yeah. 2.5 months. Which is quite something.
And then on top of that, Nadeem still sat next to him.
Yeah.
Like,
but imagine if I did that. If I came to work, everyone was like, "Look, you know, we know you've been doing all this dodgy shit.
Yeah.
You
You've been
need
stealing
to just
a bit
go.
of
You're
money.
making everyone feel so uncomfortable. I'm like, yeah, do you know what? I don't even want to be here anymore. I'm going to leave." And then just kept turning up for work for another like 2-3 months.
Yeah.
And it was like, "Oh, you quit? Oh, yeah. No, listen, I'm done. I've washed my hands with this company. I'm out.
Yeah.
I'm out.
But I'm still gonna stick around for a bit.
Yeah. And it's, you know, do you buy into it? I think I know your answer to this. Buy into the idea that it was his decision to do it was his hand was forced, but a petty need to outlast Theresa May.
I mean, has he outlasted?
He will do by September.
Oh, okay.
So he will have been Prime Minister longer than she was, because she did the honourable thing and left when she was asked to leave.
It wouldn't surprise me if it was true, but I don't actually. I think what it more is him keeping himself in everyone's eyes. He
thinks he can outlast it. He still thinks he can win.
If you watch the most recent PMQs, that man was putting on a show. Like, he was.
Oh, and I'll tell you what. How fucking embarrassing is Lindsay Hoyle?
He hasn't quite.
Can we just do this here? Okay.
He's no John Burko.
I mean,
he can't pull off a.
Yeah, I mean, he was literally. I mean, fully. Look, I respect his technique of going, "Shut up a minute, you, shut up."
The problem is he gets out of breath so quickly.
But the problem is he commands no authority in that chamber. And what he'll do is, someone shouted about Scottish independence.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Right, I'm going to fucking kick you out," and then did.
Yeah.
Whereas, meanwhile, people on the front benches of both sides, but particularly under Johnson's cabinet, have been proven to have been lying at the dispatch box.
Yeah, and he's done nothing.
And he does absolutely nothing. And you think, what is the point of view?
I think part of that is if you look at what happened to John Bercow, because out of most speakers in recent history, John Bercow was quite happy, despite the fact he used to be a Conservative MP, to hold the Conservatives to task. He took his role as Speaker
very seriously.
He cared more about the role of Speaker in Parliament than any allegiance he might have had previously.
Do you know what?
His reward for that is he's the first Speaker of the House, I believe, in history that hasn't been given a peerage afterwards.
Yeah, I will say this for Lindsay Hall. I don't necessarily think that he's favouring one side or the other.
Yeah.
But I do think he's taking it seriously. I just don't think he's up to the job. I just don't think he has the ability to command the authority.
No.
And look, let's not beat around the bush here. And I'm trying to sort of like play devil's advocate and give the man his dues.
Yeah.
He's doing it to arguably the worst Prime Minister in
there's
history.
that
And
as
certainly
well.
one of the things that makes Boris bad is that he will manipulate and lie.
And I think that's why it's standing out more that he's not doing a good job, because he has been confronted with that. But you would feel that, and he did do it. John Bercow, when he was Speaker, did a far better job. And for example, he held Boris to account over the proroguing of Parliament and was quite open about it. I can't see Sir Lindsay Hoyle doing that.
No.
And it is disappointing, but there's not a lot you can do about it, sadly, because he has to be voted out by the MPs, doesn't he?
Yeah, just get angry.
Yeah, and like I said, he gets out of breath so quickly, and it was immediate yesterday during the PMQs. It literally, I started watching it, and immediately he was kicking people out.
I mean, the worst moment, is just a kind of quick thing, and obviously, if you want to say anything quickly about Lindsay Hoyle as Speaker, feel free, and then we'll move on. The worst moment for me, under his watchful eye, it was when Dawn Butler, I'm pretty sure it was Dawn Butler, stood up, outlined a lie that the Prime Minister had told at the dispatch box, outlined the facts that backed her saying that he knew he was lying at the time, that he wasn't just going, well, at the time that was the information. She delivered these facts. It wasn't hearsay. She literally came and said, well, look, we know that he said this. We know that at the time he'd already said this. So we know at the time that he told you this, that he was lying.
Yeah.
And she got kicked out because she wouldn't take. He said, you've got to take that back, that accusation. Yeah. It's like, what accusation? It's fact. She's just laid out the facts.
He clearly seems far more concerned with.
And it's not just him. That's the whole parliamentary thing. Yeah. It's like she's just laid out the facts of how he's lied.
Yeah.
And you're going, you can't call him a liar. It's like, or even when it's literally there. Yeah. He lied. And he kicked her out because she wouldn't take it back. And bang on, she shouldn't take it back.
No, I agree with you. She shouldn't. It's sadly a consequence of the level of respect and reverence they have to have in Parliament, isn't it? The fact that you have to call them my right honourable friend and all that sort of jazz.
Yeah, when there's not a shred of honour.
Like when that guy called David Cameron Dodgy Dave and was going apoplectic in the Commons, he got kicked out. It's I don't know if that would have been any different with Bercow potentially. I'd like to think he would have done more, but also I don't know how much power Sir Lindsay Hoyle actually has. I think he has power in the Commons when they're doing stuff, but as to what he can do,
and even if a lot of it is a sort of a right and proper way to act, as we said, back to my friend. So historically, most prime ministers, cabinet members, shadow leaders of the opposition, well, what they'll do is they will follow, but when they've been called out on something, when they've been caught on something, they will kind of back down and make the appropriate apologies. Whereas Boris is not, and Boris is politics, and the politicians that followed him just don't.
No,
they don't play by those rules.
Well, no, he's made it clear, even through what he's doing now, by not actually just fucking off and doing the right thing and letting the country move on and putting on a show like. During the last PMQs, the way he was like, I believe every single one of these people can go on and do a good. Like he was proper brown nosing everyone.
Yeah. Oh, he wants a job.
And it's like he's quite happy. Like, because for me, if I was in his situation and I'd had all that backstabbing going on, I wouldn't want to work with any of them. But he's that desperate to stay in the public limelight and just persevere through all of it and just keep saying how amazing he is.
Well, yeah. And I know I said to you his speech was the equivalent of, I'm sorry you wankers don't realise how great I am, but that's your own problem.
Well, the thing is, I actually said to you, because we were both listening to it as it was happening, and I texted you and I was like, This is more like a campaign speech.
Yeah.
And like you said, there was no...
I mean, I got a couple of funny looks. I was at the gym at the time,
Yeah.
and literally under my breath, all I kept, I just kept mouthing every time he said something. I did something. I'd sort of be on the machine, and I'd be like, "Prick," and I just and like,
people are like,
I think I must have audibly said it a couple of times because a couple of people sort of looked over and was like, "What the fuck's that guy just calling the machine a prick? Like, is that how he just gets his fucking pump on?" I'm like, look.
I mean, you look like you're getting your pump on, bro.
I'm getting my pump on, but yeah, I was just listening, and I was like.
Yeah.
Every couple of minutes, it was ridiculous. It's so infuriating.
The thing is, though, it's so on brand, though, isn't it? As it was happening, as aggravating and angry as it made me, it was just like, yeah, but it makes sense. But I didn't expect him to go on and apologise. And as I said to you a few
in a previous political podcast, I believe that he stumbled into this tactic, and it's worked so well for him.
Yeah.
Why would he change tact? And even now, with his back against the wall, it's like. Yeah. Well, I reckon it will still work for me. I still get.
And the thing is, it probably still will. Like we've talked about this off the pod, that we think he will be on another cabinet at some point. Mm-hmm. It won't be the next one.
Too soon.
From after that, I would say it could happen at any point. And it wouldn't shock me if I saw him as the head of the Tories again, or head of another party that formed around him, basically.
I couldn't see that, but I could definitely see after the next general election, if the Tories stay in power, he makes his way onto a cabinet.
Yeah, I think.
Although the thing is, will he stay in his seat? Because let's be honest, the election's 2 years away, but he is polling disastrously low.
Yeah, but I can also imagine people local to his constituency just being like,
they hate him.
Oh, do they?
Yeah, he's polling.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
but he might run in another seat.
Is his constituency, and he is polling shockingly low there.
Yeah, well, the thing is, he even said during PMQs the other day, he was talking about, we're making jobs, and we're making fantastic jobs, and he's like, and I need one. So who knows? Maybe he will go up. I mean, prime ministers after they've served can make an absolute fortune going around the world.
About 100k a dinner, isn't it? After doing speeches, about 100k a speech.
Yeah, like Tony Blair rakes it in, and the worst part is we pay for the travel and the security because he's an ex-prime minister.
Yeah, it's madness.
So it'll be exactly the same for Boris if he wants it. He can have quite a nice life just coasting around.
I think we should.
But what do you think he's sticking around for? Is it just to stay?
I think he genuinely thinks he can see it out.
Okay.
Like, even if he doesn't survive as Prime Minister, which I think he still thinks there's a chance.
Yeah, well,
I think he just thinks he can outlast it.
Because one of the things that
because he's outlasted everything else
was the fact he vetoed.
Oh yeah, no. Well, I was going to say we have to mention this.
The Labour no confidence in the government vote. He vetoed that, but then tabled his own with different language.
Yeah, the Labour vote of no confidence was worded specifically to the Tory government.
Yeah.
And to the government and Boris Johnson's cabinet.
Yeah.
And the reason that kind of got vetoed was, well, look, he's already agreed to stand down.
Yeah.
So it was able to get around it. And as I heard one particular political correspondent say, Labour are well within their rights to word it like that.
Yeah.
Given everything that's gone on, given the way the public feels.
But the way he's done it, basically...
It's a vote of confidence.
Yeah, it basically means the MPs have a choice of either risking losing their government or keeping Boris around until they get a new one in. So he's basically done it to keep himself in power for
everything
a
he's
little
done
bit longer.
is to keep
and you just think to yourself, like, he must be able to do some shit in the meantime. Like, God knows what he's going to get up to.
And the most dangerous thing, before we kind of move on to the Tory leadership race, the most dangerous thing is he's been denying since 2015, 16 when it happened, 2016 I think. Deny. But he's finally admitted that Eugenie Lebedev, who he promoted as a peer to the House of Lords, against Secret Service wishes, by the way, British intelligence, defence said, we consider this to be they said, we consider, if you promote him to the House of Lords, we consider that to be a security risk to the UK.
Yeah.
Do not do it. But obviously he had the power to override that.
Yeah.
But the official advice from the security service
don't do this.
Was it is a security risk to the UK, not just we've got concerns, we consider this a security risk. And he admitted going unaccompanied by any security detail or any other officials to 2 days to his villa in Italy.
Yeah, it was. I think it might have been Sicily or
And
Sardinia.
it was when he turned
one of
up.
the
There's
two.
a picture of him, when he turned up at the airport.
Oh,
No
proper
luggage,
dishevelled.
completely dishevelled.
Yeah,
And it's
yeah.
like, so what on earth
Has gone on there.
has gone on there? What has he got over you, that,
Yeah. Or what have they given you?
that you're giving?
Yeah.
And Chris Bryant recently in PMQs actually brilliantly took down a supporter who said, we're all criticised, but can we at least say, look at what he did? And one of the things he said, look what you're doing for Ukraine. And he said, actually, look at this. And, and it's like, actually, I don't think he has helped Ukraine.
No.
We've never dealt with the fact that from around 2014, in fact, he said, this huge influx of Russian money in
We're
British
heavily
politics.
dependent on it.
And he said, and so actually, he's enabled that regime. He's enabled that thing. So actually, I think he's not just not helped Ukraine.
He's
I think he's
actively gone
damaged
against
Ukraine.
them. Yeah. No, I think that's fair.
And he just, if you've not seen it, it's about a minute
And
and
the
a half
thing is, I
clip.
don't just put
Watch
that
it,
at
it's
his door because I
brilliant
think
takedown.
the way the Conservatives, whilst in power in general, have dealt with Russian money, and it's been a case of just, we don't care where it's come from, we need it. And the amount of money that's flown, it's why it's called London grad nowadays. And it's worrying because you don't know what you can get up to in the meantime. But let's hope that there's a brighter future with someone else in charge.
Well, shall we look to who might be in charge?
I mean, off the bat, I am relieved immediately. I was relieved. Priti Patel and Dominic Raab. As soon as they weren't involved, I was like, all right, there's a thank fuck. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, 100%.
Them two in particular, I was just like, if they get anywhere near it, I'm really concerned. I mean, I'm not overly impressed. I mean, there's a couple of people I don't mind, but in general, I'm not overly wowed by the candidates. I don't know about you.
Yeah, not particularly. I will just say I just opened my notes and it just occurred to me that two things. One, or three things that are not related to the leadership race that are worth mentioning. One, that we should point out that his record of 34 resignations in 24 hours and 50 overall in this short span. In fact, it's a lot higher than 50 when you look back over the last 3 years of his premiership. He can finally consider himself world beating.
Yeah,
he's finally achieved that.
Yeah,
no one will. I'm not questioning that.
No.
Andrea Jenkins flipping off the public. Did you see that?
Yeah, I did.
And then didn't apologise. Just said that she's only human. At no point said sorry or took back any regret or remorse.
No.
Or showed any regret or remorse.
Well, no, of course I don't.
And this one was brilliant. I don't know if you saw it. I will not share the clip, so you'll have to look it out yourself because I will not give them views.
Okay.
But Fox News,
a
former aide to the Prime Minister, or someone who I'm led to believe, who I'm told is a former aide, went on. Are you aware of? I mean, you must be aware of that. Tucker Carlson.
Yes.
Disgusting human being. Went on the Tucker Carlson show.
And who's the other one? Is it Sean Hannity?
Yeah, there's a few. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Tucker Carlson said to him, "So what's really happening? Why is Boris resigning?" And this, I swear to God, couldn't make it up. He said, "Oh, he's resigned because I think the public realised that he got a bit too woke in what he was doing. He's focused a bit too much trying to please Germany and France and focusing on Ukraine, and it was all a bit too woke." And apparently, you can say that unchallenged, that Boris Johnson, the most far-right Prime Minister that we've had for 40 years, was too woke.
Yeah.
And yet, apparently, that's
but that's the world we live in,
unchallenged.
But to be honest, just from the fact it was on Fox News, that's why it went unchallenged, because there's no standard of journalism at Fox News whatsoever. Everyone must have seen clips of things on Fox News and the standard of reporting, in air quotes, that goes on. But yeah, so the remaining candidates currently to be the next PM is Rishi Sunak.
Yep.
Penny Mordaunt.
Yep.
Liz Truss.
Yep.
Kemi Badenoch.
Yep.
And Tom Tugendhat. I mean, some of those names, bro.
First of all, can I just say one of my favourite, low-key, family-friendly jokes of the last couple of weeks was when everyone was throwing their hat into the ring and people said that now he's just Tom Tugen until he gets his hat back.
What?
Tom Tugendhat.
Right.
And he threw his hat into the ring.
Okay.
And until he gets it back, he's just Tom Tugen. Which is just a low-key, family-friendly, really bad, cheesy joke.
That was awful.
And I sort of love it.
That's fair.
'Cause
You
it
are a
was
bit of a
nice-
dad, though.
Do you
You're an
know
old
what? I
man,
love a
so you
good
love
dad
a dad
joke.
joke.
Yeah, I'm an old man now.
You are. You've always been an old man as long as I've
I
known
know, but
you.
now physically I'm also an old man.
Yeah, it's getting there. I mean, you just hit happy birthday,
Thank you.
30.
Thank you. The
I mean,
big
it's not
3-0.
really congratulations. It's more of a condolence 5 situation. Rippers.
Very, very sad moment.
Yeah, already got 1 foot in the grave, bro.
I've got, many feet in the grave. Not my
No
grave.
one wants to be 30 with COVID. You might as well be in the old people's home. It's that bad.
I was looking at some.
I can believe it. They're too expensive though.
Can't afford it.
There's no way. No way.
First of all, are you quite shocked that Patel and Raab didn't go for it?
I think they were probably just being realistic. Neither of them have a good public profile to my knowledge. Dominic Raab has been nothing but an embarrassment since entering into public life, from what I can tell. He's had a series of gaffes, and I mean, he holds some weight in the Conservative Party. He's one of the bigger names, but I think from the list of people we've seen, bar Rishi, mostly, Liz Truss a little bit, none of them have a massive connection to Boris. I mean, the closest one is maybe Penny Mordaunt, but again, she didn't work for him for very long.
No, well, the main one is Rishi and Liz.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure, and that's why.
But there's more candidates that are further removed from Boris than there are the ones.
I think that's
that
why
are
some of the
close.
ones that have dropped out and didn't make the cut.
I think it's just they were too close to Boris. I think that's probably what it came down to. And also,
Jeremy Hunt had already lost.
Yeah, and Priti Patel's under a lot of hot water since the whole Rwanda thing. That's still quite large in everyone's mind. So she's a bit too hot to touch.
As far as I'm aware, all of the candidates are promising to pursue and push on with
the Rwanda deal. Yeah, I was listening to Tom Tugendhat. He went on LBC and he was asked about it, and he was very much defending it and actually thinks it's not. He said it's a small component of a larger issue, but yeah, we will still move forward with it. And it shows how out of touch they are.
I know I made some notes about each of the candidates, just a few little notes. May I whiz through them, or would you like to dissect them and discuss?
No, please do.
Penny Mordaunt, Navy woman.
I'd never heard of her.
Now she was an acting sub-lieutenant in the Navy Reserves.
Wow.
And she's former Defence Secretary, which we do know.
And she went on Splash.
Not really linked to Boris. Went on ITV Splash.
Which I didn't even know was a thing. I'd never heard of it.
I remember it, and I remember, Jesus, there's nothing they won't put on TV.
Yeah.
Her video campaign, my favourite thing, which launched when she launched her campaign to be Prime Minister, her video campaign had to be taken down just 2 hours after it launched.
Oh, I know why.
Because Johnny Peacock and a director of a 2016 documentary, which some of the footage ended up being featured in her video, and Johnny Peacock ended up being featured in her video, both said that she didn't have permission and asked for it to be removed. Johnny Peacock in particular saying, and I quote, "anything but blue, please." Sorry, what did you...
What was who was the one that had Oscar Pistorius in their launch video?
I can't remember, but I remember
there was one of them,
and I never saw that
on,
particular
man.
thing. Yeah, it's brilliant.
Well, who's working on these things?
She said, and I quote, "proud to be part of what made this country the most resilient country on earth." Not even sure what that means. Our country is resilient, and we're the most resilient. And how you measure, I don't know. This is really interesting.
That's the Britishness shit, isn't
it?
And
it's a big talking point in a lot of the debates, in a lot of the campaigns. Now she has a gay twin.
What?
Yep.
Okay.
She has a gay twin, and in 2020, she said that the trans community were going through similar things to that the gay men went through in the 80s.
Yeah.
And in 2018, said that trans women are women.
Yeah.
And in 2019, she said that she supported changes to the Gender Reform Act.
Yeah.
And then realising this war on woke,
and that was to do with the birth certificate situation, wasn't it?
It was a lot to it. It was a lot to it, and access to medical care.
I was listening to her talk about it.
She now doesn't support those changes.
No,
and she's now gone completely the other way on the trans
debate. She did
debate.
sort of explain it, and again, I don't know how true this is because it was the first time I'd heard of it. It was to do with it was the ease of which people could do it. That was what she didn't realise when she first supported it, and it was. But she said at the same time we need to do something because the wait time to get these things dealt with when someone's going through this process is incredibly long. It's like a 2 year wait minimum.
She is now pretty much going the other way on the debate.
Yeah, I mean it's sad. I mean, and also I just find it concerning when a politician goes on television like a reality show when they're a serving MP. I have
Yeah,
an
well,
issue
Nadine
with
Dorris
that.
did it.
Well, exactly. I don't know.
She went on I'm a Celebrity.
I know. I just
She's
have
a
an issue
joke
with
of a
that.
woman.
Yes, she
How
is.
she made it to... Do you know what, though? Weirdly, she's sort
She's
of
still there.
inspirational. She's sort of inspirational because it's kind of like, do you know what, kids? You can do anything. I mean, look at that.
Yeah,
That is a
made it
high-ranking...
one of the
British
most senior
public-
politicians in the country. She's running
And
the country.
Look
with
at the
people.
shit she comes out with.
Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant. And I think you've seen it, Suze Kempner, who does
Yes,
the videos of Nadine Dorris.
That
whatever.
busty lady.
She's so
I mean,
funny that
jeez.
she might actually get her some actual, like, she could have actually generated her some genuine votes in the race.
There were
because-
people who probably watched that took them a while to realise
and
it
thought,
was a
she's not that
spoof.
bad, she's just funny.
Yeah.
So Liz Truss, as you mentioned,
Again, I didn't
Foreign
know
Secretary.
a lot about her, but I don't hear a lot of
backed
impressive
by
things.
Jacob Rees-Mogg and Nadine Dorris,
I mean, that's a
as
reason not to
being
support her.
the most Brexity candidate.
But yet, she was a stark Remainer at
She
one point.
campaigned for and voted for Remain.
Yeah.
I saw a clip of her at the dispatch box saying, and I've no idea of the context, but it almost doesn't matter what the context is because this is fucking brilliant. She said that there were, and I quote, security dogs that were barking, which deters drones.
Right. Why does that deter drones?
You tell me why a little toy
Maybe it's
helicopter.
do you know what it
scared
is?
of a
I've
dog.
got it. It's the sonic waves of the barking. It throws off the instrumentation.
The drones were
inside.
never built to handle the
I could do
pitch
this
of a
politician
dog.
shit. I could do this. I could just
It's
talk.
brilliant. Then during her speech the other day, after she delivered her speech, she couldn't get out of the room,
Yeah.
as I'm sure you're aware.
Yes, I did see that.
And did you know that
It's a bit concerning
that,
when someone has to be guided out.
she said that she was, in that speech, she said that she was brought up as a traditional conservative.
Yeah.
In her youth, she was a member of the Youth Lib Dems. So very conservative, very Brexity. A young Lib Dem.
I
And
mean,
look, we
look,
can change our minds.
she's
But a young
a-
Lib Dem member
Yeah.
who campaigned for and voted for to stay in the EU is being heralded as the most Brexity, most traditional conservative.
Yeah. Because basically what she's shown is she's willing to sacrifice all her morals and political beliefs for power and
sure.
expediency. And that's something a lot of current high-level Tories seem to value and enjoy.
Yeah, they don't
around
care if
them.
it's true. They just want to hear what they want to hear.
Yeah, she's saying. Well, the thing is, they can believe her as well because they're going to be like, well, look, she's proven she's willing to go back on anything she believes in to get shit done and to get to the position she wants. So I believe if she...
By the way, the head of the Farmers Union was on Question Time this week
Yeah.
and was absolutely, she just said one line right at the end. She did, she answered a question and blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah. And she just said this, she just snuck this one little thing on at the end. And I just wanted to honestly, it made me fall in love with her.
Okay.
Because she just sort of went, and by the way, she said, everyone's talking about, because she's talking about the damage of the Northern Ireland Protocol and stuff like that. And she said, can I just say, she said, everyone's saying Boris, and Boris Johnson, and everyone's saying, oh, he got Brexit done. Brexit isn't even close to being done.
No.
The Northern Ireland Protocol is only just it's only just beginning.
Yeah.
The problems with that.
I mean,
So it's not even
and
close
as
to being
things
done.
stand, the UK is headed into some serious choppy waters politically. We've got the Scottish independence movement ramping up, which we're trying to block.
Which I love, by the way, that in the same breath,
yeah.
Conservative MPs, the ones in power and the senior.
Oh yeah, about
members,
taking back control,
about
and
having-
not having a foreign democracy.
well, about
controlling your...
talking about the strength of the union,
Yeah.
and the value of the union, and working together, and how we're stronger together,
yeah.
whilst building an entire manifesto about pulling out of a union and gaining independence,
Yeah.
and then trying to block an independence vote because independence is bad,
and it
it's
doesn't
like,
suit
what's
us. Yeah.
and it's different when you're the
Well,
union.
of course it is. It's, But the thing is, we live in a society at the moment where I don't know whether it's we don't pay attention, but it certainly doesn't seem like we care about the cognitive dissonance that constantly goes on, the fakery, the two-facedness of our politics, and we have no credibility on an international stage anymore.
Oh, absolutely not.
And I don't just put that at Boris's door; it's all of them. That's what we're projecting out there. That's the people we're sending out to represent us. And it's a real shame.
Liz Truss was just a walking,
And
as Foreign
wasn't
Secretary,
she
just a
the-
walking photo opportunity.
Yeah, and wasn't she the equalities
photo
minister
shoot.
at one point or something like that for women? And everyone who's dealt with her said she's actively doing everything possible.
She's very patriarchal, yeah, in
To
terms of the...
fuck up equality and make it more difficult for women.
Yeah, it's yeah. I spoke about the gender thing.
Yeah.
Grant Shapps threw his hat into the ring.
Oh,
said
mate.
the smartest thing he's ever said
Yeah.
by saying that, you know, we have a huge cost of living crisis
Yeah.
that's only getting worse. Petrol's getting worse. We've got, you know, a war in Ukraine. We've got, which is affecting the economy, which is affecting food stocks.
Yeah.
And we've got this issue with the Northern Ireland Protocol and stuff.
Yep.
He said, I'm not going to, you know, if you want to come and talk to me about this divisive culture war, he said, I'm not going to engage on it. I'm not the politician for that. And it was like, oh my God, that's the smartest thing I've ever said.
And then
immediately backed out to back Rishi Sunak. Rishi Sunak, by the way, who launched his Ready for Rishi website and campaign back in December 2021.
When I heard that was the slogan, I was like, come on, man.
It sounds more like a really bad keyboard party.
Yeah.
Who's ready for Rishi?
It's cringy, isn't it? It's not
even
great.
more, like I said, even more cringy the fact that the website was launched in 2021.
The thing is, it's unbelievable to me the sort of roller coaster we've gone on with Rishi to a degree, because he came in, no one knew who he was, and he did an okay job at first during the pandemic, and he got a huge bump from the furlough scheme, and it basically turns out from that moment he has been angling to become Prime Minister.
Yeah.
It's been like, apparently his website readyforrishi.com has been registered for months.
Yeah, 2021, December 2021 it was registered.
Yeah,
so that's
he's
about
been
8 months.
He's known it's coming and has been ready for it. But actually they're saying, compared to any other candidate that's up for it, in the Conservative Party, he polls lower than all of them. So even though currently from the MPs he looks like he's winning.
Well, it's because he's standing there telling us about how he's going to help stimulate growth, how he's going to fix the economy, despite being in charge of the economy for the last 2 years.
Yeah, and being
did he not
Boris's
understand
best mate.
what his role was as Chancellor of the Exchequer? Yeah, and being Boris's mate. 2 things to say about Rishi. Number one, in one of his speeches, he spoke about the fears of electoral reform and the fear of allowing a fairer, more representative voting system, which he essentially acknowledges will kick and keep the Tories out of power.
Yeah,
and will favour a left-wing government.
Yep.
And also, what do you make of the clip of him from about 10 years ago when he's about 21?
Talking about his friends.
Talking about the fact he went, you know, I have, you know, loads of friends, you know, upper class, middle class, working class. Well, not working class.
My friends
and that's
in
how
the
he
aristocracy.
Says it. He's like working class.
Yeah.
Well, not working class, you know.
Yeah.
You know, come on.
Yeah.
What do you make of that? Do you think that's done the damage?
Maybe. The problem is, though, it's not like, to me at least, none of it's surprising. Like when it came out, I was just like, what do you expect? Of course, a man that rich that comes from what he comes from isn't like down the local boozer with Gary, who's a construction worker. No, I didn't expect it from him. I think it was stupid for someone going into politics, but at that point he wouldn't have known he was going into politics. It's just one of those unfortunate things, isn't it? But I mean, I think before he announced he was running, it wasn't a secret who he is, what he comes from, the wealth he has, his wife, and none of that's been secret. So if anyone's surprised by it, I'm more surprised that they're surprised than his actual attitude and what he believes in. It just seems on brand. And it's a shame because when he first came in, as I said, with this roller coaster, I think I genuinely remember at the time, and probably even said it on pod, that I could have seen him being a PM and maybe not being a bad one, but we've got to a point now where with everything we know about him, the job he did as Chancellor, the lack of interest even now in actually helping people, I think he'd probably, out of all of them, be the worst choice.
Interesting. Obviously, in terms of other choices, Raymond Kisti, MP for Gillingham and Raynham, was the absolute surprise package, opting into the race before opting back out after getting 0 MPs to back him.
Yep.
Understandably, no one had heard of him.
And did you see his video? It was dreadful.
Oh, it was garbage. It was the funniest thing.
Yeah, and I think like he even had issues with the sound as he was doing it.
And he did like in his statement saying he was backing out. He was like, I've run a good race. It's like, what race? What are you talking about? No, you haven't. And
it reminds me, I loved the Grant Shapps thing because you tweeted in response to like the nice things he was saying, and you were like, "Oh my God!" Like, and I was like, and I just responded with a GIF of "Don't believe the hype," and the next day he'd thrown his house. Yes.
Yeah, and it was so good. But him saying like, "Oh yeah, we've run a good race." That's like me turning up to the London Marathon to watch it and then going, "I did really well this year."
Yeah.
Like, well, you weren't really in it.
Yeah, and I think we'll get onto it, but the reason why I prefer the people I prefer is because the majority of the people involved in what it feels like the Conservative Party, and I'm sure it's the same in others, but it feels like most of them would sell their, and I heard someone else say that they would sell their nan for a cabinet position.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like above anything else, it's about personal interest. And so it just means whoever they get in charge, for the most part, I don't see any improvement coming at any point. So for me, this makes no difference to our lives whatsoever, really, short of us being lucky and getting one of the ones that's promising huge tax cuts, and that's
And
even
they're
if
all
they follow
they're all
through on
promising
it.
tax cuts. None of them can deliver it, by the way.
No.
Sajid Javid didn't make the cut.
No, he didn't.
And, you know, one of the things the 1922 committee said was we're setting the target at, it's usually about 8 MPs based on the number of MPs based on the number of seats that the Conservatives have in Parliament. You would usually expect it to be around 8 MPs to get back into, put your name onto the thing where they start whittling it down. They decided to set it as 20 because it was like, look, we just need to get this over with.
Yeah, we need to get it done as quick as possible.
Ben Wallace, the Defence Secretary, was the bookies' favourite for quite a while, despite never entering the race.
No.
Which was, I
well,
sort of loved.
basically, it's because apparently in the Conservative Party and their members, he's one of the most popular.
He's very popular.
And then amongst the MPs, he's also incredibly popular.
And I honestly, it was so funny to me that he'd literally come out and I know a lot of, and particularly Conservative MPs will come out and say, no, definitely not. And then the next day it's happening.
I heard
sort of like Harry Redknapp on deadline day.
He throw his hat in the ring is basically because at the stage he's got young children and he doesn't want
them to go through that. No, that's fair.
I think he's basically said behind closed doors, in the future, maybe. But right now, no.
No, Hunt obviously didn't make it, and I was quite curious to see how he changed, because when he went up against Boris Johnson, he was the more favourable candidate for me.
Yeah,
that doesn't mean I want Jeremy Hunt as Prime Minister.
Watching the debate,
he was a terrible education secretary, he was a terrible health secretary, but
it just shows how bad it can go in a few years, can't it? Because
he was going to appoint Esther McVeigh as his deputy, and it was like, ooh, that's the move.
Yeah, but then again, it's people showing they're willing to sell their souls to get the position they want, isn't it? I mean, it's how Boris got to where he was.
Yeah. Now this one, Kemi Badenoch, as you said, as you mentioned.
Again, I'd never heard of her, and she's not held any senior positions. She's only held junior positions.
Yeah, an equalities minister. And
but I listened to her on LBC because most of them have been going on Ian Dale's show.
Yeah.
On LBC, and I don't agree with some of her stuff. Like she's considered the anti-woke.
That's her
option,
stance.
And that's concerning. But listening to her talk, the way she was listening to how her logic seemed to be and how she was rationalising, I didn't mind where she was coming from. None of it, like, it felt a bit like for me, like with Jordan Peterson, in terms of people taking.
I mean, that's so worrying that you're making that comparison. For me, that says
just
enough.
More in terms of people not understand. Like, I don't know enough about her, but just from how it came across, from what I've seen so far, I think perhaps her stances on things are far more nuanced than what the overall effect of that stance is. Do you know what I mean?
Well, let me run this by you. So she's polling big.
Yeah.
But she was an equalities minister who promoted successfully for it to be illegal for schools to teach about white privilege. This is a young black woman teaching that it's illegal. She also supported the, and I've got the name of it here, do you know what? I'll get to it because I've got a lot to read through. We'll get to it. She chucked it in. She also talked about white privilege. She sort of grouped it in together with defending like people who want to defund the police and stuff, which is, you know, and the thing is that is a political choice in a debate to defund the police.
Yeah.
But systemic and institutional racism is a fact.
Yes.
That's not, you know, it absolutely should be, and it's very clever from the far right for me to promote a kind of racist, white privilege, patriarchal views from the voice of a black woman. Yeah. Because they can kind of that thing where you're like, well, surely she can't be, you know, racist or pro-patriarchal because, guys.
It's really difficult for me because the issues she's dealing with are about things that I have no insight into or have not any leg to stand on to talk about things like white privilege and racial issues and LGBTQ plus issues and all that sort of stuff. But what I heard when I was listening to her was someone that is quite hard-lined on stuff, but was very much willing to be at a table with anyone, have a like her issue, because they were talking about a black comedian, Dame Baptiste, was very.
I like Dame Baptiste. Really,
I like
funny.
him. But I also find he can go a bit too far from some of the things I've seen him on. He's very aggressive in his outlook towards things, and I think there's probably a middle ground to be found. And I think
it's just the act. I think it's just a
maybe, but I think I've seen him on a few things where hilarious and really funny, and he's very clever.
Like it.
But no, I think sometimes the aggression's a bit much. But she just came across as like someone who's far more reasonable than I think you think she would be.
Well, let me run this past you, because also, that whole thing of packaging these views behind a black woman is sort of not that dissimilar to what they're doing with Pretty Patel.
I
which
also think that
worked.
does
People
her a
hate
disservice potentially as well. I think it's unfair to assume that she might not believe in any of it herself, or do you know what I mean? That she's only doing it because
like
she's being kind of promoted, and
it's kind of.
Do you know what I mean? Buying into it.
It's
for
kind of a thing
reasons.
about. Maybe she does believe in it, but it's not great.
No, but I think also the experience of black people must be different from person to person, and her upbringing might be different to Dame Baptiste or someone else.
But I said it's similar to packaging it in Pretty Patel, who, by the way, admitted that her own border policy, own border policy would not allow her parents in and would fly them out of the country.
Yeah.
But let me say this: so you're talking about she's happy to sit at the table and she's happy to discuss with people, and that's all well and good from what she's saying. But let me run this past you.
Yep.
It's becoming my little catchphrase of the day.
No, please.
Let me run this past you. She said in one of her speeches that businesses were begging her to scrap the net zero targets, the 2050 net zero targets. She said businesses were begging her to do it, and they were begging her to scrap the policies that were all building towards that.
Yeah.
Which prompted the next day an open letter from Unilever, Coca-Cola, Lloyds, and Amazon, and plenty more businesses, big businesses, by the way, saying that net zero is the only economic pathway. The letter states, and I'm quoting the letter, "We have seen firsthand that investment in low-carbon infrastructure and technologies delivers huge economic benefits. Supportive policy measures bring down the cost of clean technology, enabling businesses to capitalise on growing global markets. The benefits are significant, from job creation, increased exports, and geographically dispersed growth, to inward investment and improved air quality from clean energy, important contributors to levelling up, all of which are important contributors to levelling up opportunities across the UK."
Yeah.
So that all came in an open letter the day after she said businesses were begging her to stop.
My only issue with that is, right, there can be a very big difference between what people or companies and higher up people in companies will say publicly and what they will say privately. I could believe that on a public stance, a big company like Coca-Cola, Unilever and all them lot publicly can't have a stance other than...
No, but what they could have done is said nothing, because she's not a
That's
prime
true.
minister.
That's true.
She's a junior minister who's in the race of about 6 others to become prime minister. So you could have just let it go out, and if she said prime minister, get involved.
They could have, but it could also have been bad PR for them not to come out against that.
But they could have just said, look, there's so much stuff going on in that leadership race, because a lot has gone on. They could have said, well, look, we're not aware of everything that's gone on in the leadership race.
Yeah.
What I think happened was she said something, and they were like, but she's calling us liars.
Maybe.
Because that's not the truth. Or we're calling her a liar because she's accusing us of something that's not the case.
Yeah. I also find it, and it isn't necessarily in the defence of her, it's more of, I find it uncomfortable, huge conglomerations that don't give a fuck about everyone else at all, pretending to care about the environment. Because the push in capitalism, and it's not just aimed at those companies in particular, is about profit at all costs, and on top of that, growth at all costs. And I don't know, I feel publicly, and this is in general, we talk about how important environmental issues are and how we need to cut things back, and we were having a conversation before this about how bad things are getting. I don't know, I find it disingenuous, like, for how slow things are actually moving.
Because of the way that people's perceptions are shifting in the media, will deny it to the hilt because they just don't want it to be a thing. But I think generally, overall, people in this country's perceptions are shifting towards a more eco-conscious thing. Yeah, I think because of that,
all the larger institutions, whether they're private
for sure, but
or
I
the
think
government,
because people are the consumers of these products and these companies, and they're becoming more eco-conscious, it's more profitable for the companies to be
Yeah,
more eco-conscious.
And I think that will change as technology improves as well, because the things we can do with the things we consume and making things more recyclable, that will all change and it will become more cost efficient.
Yeah.
But I can imagine when things aren't cheap, companies publicly saying they support. I mean, and I know Amazon are doing stuff like green lorries, green vans and all that sort of stuff. And a lot of companies are doing that. But I think when it's more expensive, I could believe that they do behind closed doors. They want things cut back and don't want to have it affect their bottom line to the degree it might. But I could also believe she probably lied. I don't know. The idea of these huge companies being moral and being concerned.
I think she's just trying to appeal to
it's possible.
kind of the meat, because I don't even think they're necessarily trying to appeal to the Conservative membership. I think they're appealing to the media owners, the Barclay brothers, to Viscount Rothmere, to Murdoch, who all of whom's backing they're going to need if they're going to win the next general election. Yeah. And they all want to deny climate change. They want to pretend it's not real, which, by the way, is something that none of them are mentioning, despite the fact that we are about to reach potentially 40 degrees for the first time in the country. We're facing a heat wave. The Met Office today, as we record this, has put out the highest alert for the first time ever. Yeah. Ever. And none of them are talking about it in the leadership race.
And if anything, most of them are talking about scaling back environmental controls.
Yeah, they've all said that.
And that's why I was taking umbrage with the idea of these big companies caring about the environment, because not necessarily those ones in particular, but there will be big entities that are funding politicians to scale back environmental controls.
All of them have said that they want to, publicly they've said they want to continue with the 2050 net zero goal. Yeah, but some of them, including Kemi Badenoch, have said that they want to readdress the dates. They want to look at the dates and move the dates, move the goalposts.
One of the other candidates, Tom Tugendhat,
who I haven't got anything on.
Because he's never held a position of importance ever. He's not been a junior minister. He's not been a cabinet minister. He's been a joint chair of something. I can double check what it is if you bear with me. I've got all.
But while you look, let me just quickly say that one last thing on
Kemi. He's the chair of the Foreign Affairs Select Committee.
Yeah, the Select Committee. But I said one last thing on Kemi Badenoch. The issue that they do want to talk about, and the issue they want to talk about, is the gender thing. And at her launch speech, she had 2 gender-neutral toilets at the back of the venue, which are gender-neutral toilets. Yeah. And someone had put a bit of masking tape and put men and ladies on them.
Okay. So she acted.
So it's a proper last-minute thing. It's a proper.
The problem is
because they think that's what people care about.
Again, I went to say the trans issue. It's not the trans issue, because people being trans isn't an issue.
No, it's people's issues with it.
It feels like, and I think it's definitely the case because of how poor the support is for these people. We're still very early on in the journey of like what we went through with gay people. Like, it wasn't that long ago we were chemically castrating gay men. Do you know what I mean?
Braverman, who threw her name into who didn't make the cut.
Yeah.
She actually wants to, basically, wanted to reintroduce Section 28, which is an act that was introduced by, I'm pretty sure it's Margaret Thatcher back in the 80s, which banned the teaching of the existence of gay people in schools.
Yeah.
So it said that it is illegal to teach the existence of gay people.
Well, that's ridiculous.
And homosexuality in schools. But she wanted to reintroduce that, by the way.
As a society,
so it's not just the trans people that are under attack. This is the thing, when the right wing are attacking the trans community, it's it's a gateway. They're coming for everyone else.
Absolutely, and I think you're right. And I think there are probably a lot of politicians out there, especially in the Conservative Party, that probably don't have an issue with trans people whatsoever, but because of the
publicly they feel like they've got to.
Yeah, or not, or that they say nothing or do.
Well, it's an issue. It's an issue that's causing trip ups for Keir Starmer as well.
Yeah,
it's been tripped up by it.
And to be honest, I think there's still so many discussions going on with things like with trans people in sport and other things. I am still finding my feet on some of those issues like trans people in sport. So I try and cut other people slack if they're not quite getting it right. If there's no malice or nastiness behind it. Do you know what I mean?
My issue with it all is very clear to me right now in the context of what we're talking about. I don't care about trans people playing sport. Obviously I do, and there's But the priority is
Yeah.
so low down the list. I care about the cost of living crisis. I care about the
No,
fact that my
absolutely.
energy
It
bills
shouldn't be
are
the
about to
thing
go up in
we're talking
October,
about. No,
and
I
that they're
get
about
that.
to go up again in January,
Yeah.
despite the fact that I can't even afford them now.
Yeah.
And they're going to go up twice in the next couple of months, in the next 6 to 8 months.
Yeah.
I care about the fact that petrol is costing me, nearly double what it was
A
year ago, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Those are the things I care about.
Yeah.
Those are the things I want addressed immediately in the here and now. Do you realise that since 2019...
And the thing is, for us, that's how we feel. But obviously there's a lot of trans people out there that might be happy that it is being spoken about.
But it's not being spoken about in the right way.
No, it's not. But again, I don't know, is that just because of the mechanisms above us, or is it because we're not quite accepting it? I don't know what it is yet. Yeah, the thing is though, it's a distraction, but they're also, like as you say, they are trying to use it as a gateway to go back into equality.
But they're not, but the problem is they're not debating it.
No.
They're not discussing it. They're attacking.
I think another problem is the Brits as a whole. We can be quite prudish, and we're very uncomfortable talking about things. And for me, it's a very simple thing. It should be full equality. I think there is a conversation to be had over sports, but ultimately, if sporting bodies and the people competing in sports are fine with it, then
look, you're always going to get individuals that aren't.
And as to what balance that has to be found, I don't know, but it's full equality. Like I said, and as I've said on the podcast before, I have concerns over age and processes and
on the trans in sport thing.
I
just got to say again because it's one of my favourite things ever. There was that skateboarder.
Yeah.
First of all, skateboarding not a real sport. Said it then, say it now. Second of all,
I don't know. There's a lot of skill involved.
She made some big thing because she lost to a trans woman, and she was like, "It's ridiculous," like blah blah blah. And then you actually look back on it, and like 6 months before that, she lost to a 13-year-old, and you're like, "Bro, I don't think the problem is any kind of genetic advantage. I think the fact is you just might not be very good."
Something like skateboarding, I don't know how much.
I just want to mention it because it made me laugh. It was like,
but I think when you're getting into things where your physicality is directly involved in the competing, like in skateboarding, I'd imagine it's about agility, composure, coordination.
Like I said, it just made me laugh because she was like,
this
person got an advantage because of their physical stature. It's like, bro, you lost to a child.
Well,
not
even
in
skateboarding, you didn't. If it was a kickboxing fight,
and
do you know what I mean?
The main thing is you lost to a child.
Or like even
that's not the issue.
Swimming or weight, something. Do you know what I mean? Those sort of sports where having 20, 30 years of testosterone.
But the point is, I don't think we're necessarily doing the conversation justice right now, but we are debating it more than is being debated right now. It's just being thrown around as a hot word, as a buzzword.
The reason it's not as constructive right now is because perhaps from my end, I'm nowhere near as educated as I should be on it, or...
And we're not giving it its due course. We're not sitting down to... It's a side thought off a side thought.
Yeah.
We're debating it more than it's being debated.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
I've just got a couple more notes, and then we can quickly... just very, very, very quickly. Spain's president, by the way, recently announced that train journeys will be free on a short and medium-term journeys to help with the cost of living crisis.
Yeah.
And they're also just introducing a tax on banks because they're profiting from higher interest rates. And also, it's one of these things, until we as a government admit that Brexit is a bad idea and bad for the economy, we are stuck in a failing Tory loop where we want to promote Brexit. We want to pretend that it's weird. We've got to stick to it because that's what the people want. Also, when they say about cutting red tape, and they were going to cut red tape, just to be very clear,
they mean sacking people.
They don't mean paperwork and admin. Yeah, they mean workers' rights.
Yeah,
that's the red tape they want to cut. That's
they want to get rid of the human rights bill that we took from the EU
their bill
under the guise of we're taking
rights,
back
I think
control.
They're calling it, the fact that people...
Can I be honest with you? As things stand, it's going to happen, isn't it? I mean, unless there's a seismic shift in the general public. Because I've got to be honest with you, and it's not because I don't have faith in Sir Keir Starmer. He's getting better, I think. He's improved a little bit, but it's more to do with the general public. Because for me, it got to a stage a while ago, but it's definitely there now that if we keep electing in a Tory government, well, then we've got nothing to fucking
this
it's
is why
our
it's key.
fault.
But about 57% of people, on average, in the last... Okay, we've had a lot of general elections in the last year, but on average since 2015, about 57% of people on average have voted for left-wing parties.
Yeah.
43%, which is a lower percent for those of you that aren't very good at maths, voted for right-wing parties. The problem is that their votes nearly all went predominantly to the Tory party, whereas the left was split between Labour, between Lib Dems, between Greens.
Yeah.
This is why proportional voting and representational voting matters.
Yes.
This is why the coalition between other parties.
And
this is why Rishi
talking about
Sunak
it
said that
since
he was scared of it.
Voting.
That's why Rishi Sunak said he's scared of it.
Yeah. No, and but for me, it's getting to a point where, because it's still a large percentage of the population that will vote for them.
But that's the thing. It's not. I think the larger percentage vote against them. But the problem is the ones that vote for them all vote for them, whereas the ones that vote against them vote for different parties. I
get asked a fair bit by some people I know about, like, when elections come around, who I'm going to vote for, and they ask my opinion. I was like, look, ultimately you have to vote for who you believe in, but I also think if you're being really honest with yourself, you have to be realistic about what the options are.
Yeah.
And the reality of our situation is that we have a two-party system. So until that changes, you have to pick a side between the two and which one you go along with. Personally, I believe people in general should have more. We should share more. The rich should contribute a bit more. I'm not saying we should fucking strip away everything they have, because in a lot of cases people earn their money. I don't think it's all sorts of, but I just think, I don't know, until that changes, you have to be realistic about what your options are. And for me, if you don't want the Tories in power, there should only be one party you vote for, because it's not realistic to vote for Lib Dems. It's not realistic. Like, if Lib Dems get 20 seats, that's great, but there's fuck all they're going to do for you.
No, but that's the problem around
the Green Party might get more than one.
Some areas are so anti-Labour you've got to vote Lib Dems to...
your only option is to vote Labour if you don't want the Tories. If you're just being honest and realistic, I'm not saying we shouldn't change
again, never mind the fact that there are so many more seats in England than there are in Wales and Scotland.
Yeah.
But yeah, listen, who, do you have anything else to say on any of the candidates?
I mean, we could talk about, like, who would you like?
I was just going to say,
who would you, out of them, think would be the best option?
Out of them, I'm thinking kind of selfishly, part of me is thinking to pick the ones that are most associated with Boris, so that by the time it comes to the next general election, people remember it.
That's fair.
But realistically, it's so hard because they're also... None of them stand for anything. They stand for whatever they think they've got to stand for to get them into power.
Yeah.
That none of them actually believe. So, if one of them comes out and says... it's kind of like with Theresa May and everything that she did. It's that old thing of I didn't agree with a lot of what she said.
No.
But at least I knew that generally there were a couple of issues where she did flip-flop.
She wasn't a bad person.
Generally, I knew that she meant what she was saying.
Yeah, she had beliefs.
That she was pushing something.
She stood for.
Because she genuinely...
Yeah.
These guys, it's like, right, it's like, look at Penny Mordaunt, who's arguably polling the best at the moment.
She is, yeah.
Look at her on the whole gay, on the trans thing. Literally 2 years ago, she was saying very adamantly and strongly that what she was in favour of and what she, and she believed and she supported. And then now we're here in the race for Prime Minister, and none of that means anything. She's gone the complete other way on it. Look at Liz Truss, and like I said, I know we know people are allowed to change their minds, but it's mad that you changed your mind on Brexit, a thing that has been proven to be bad in every possible measurable way.
And it hasn't even technically fully happened yet.
And she was a staunch, she campaigned vehemently to remain. She voted to remain, and yet here she is 6 years, and I know 6 years is a bit of a time span. Here she is, but not even 6 years. Here she is, 2 years later when she was appointed into 3 years later when she was appointed into government. And you think, and now she's gone the other way and she's so pro-Brexit, and you think, but so none of it means anything. So all of their promises and pledges don't mean anything to me. I'm basically voting on the one that I can listen to the most. Yeah, the one that's the least bad, basically. Or at least who comes across that way. It's like picking the best out of a bad bunch. I mean, I wouldn't vote for any of them. I won't vote. There's no way on God's green earth
short of me becoming very rich and changing a lot of personal beliefs, which I'd like to think even if I had money I wouldn't. I couldn't see myself
Who
ever
would you
voting
want to win?
Conservative. From what I've heard of them, because I've listened to Penny Mordaunt be interviewed. Who's the other lady? I keep forgetting her name. Kemi Badenoch.
You heard.
And Tom Tugendhat. Out of all of them, Tom Tugendhat seemed the most
maybe
reasonable.
Tom Tugendhat at the moment.
But the likelihood of him getting it is very low.
It'll be between...
After that, I would have probably said Kemi.
It'll be between... The final ballot will be between Rishi and Penny.
Because I think... Yeah, I think you're probably right. And I think out of the two of them, I would take Penny. The only thing with Penny is the research I was doing on her, it seems people either think she's incredible or thick as shit. There's no middle ground. It just seems to be one or the other. So I don't know which way to go on her. I just know I'd prefer her to Rishi Sunak. The idea of him being our Prime Minister after how low the public opinion was of him at one point.
I mean, we know we're probably not going to get help.
I think fundamentally his behaviour over Boris to pretend that he was taking a principled stance at the end of it all, after everything Boris has done.
Yeah, except he was at the parties. He stood by him through...
He was there for all of it.
So much other shit.
It says a lot about the Conservative Party that he's got the amount of public support he's got as well, really. I think for the Conservative Party, the best thing for them would be get one of, for me, either Kemi or Tom in, just because I think they're younger.
The poll about so they asked Labour voters and they asked Conservative voters.
Yeah.
They put together, do you think each of these people would make a good or a bad Prime Minister?
Yeah.
Every single one of them, no shock that everyone on Labour thought they'd all be bad.
Yeah.
Interestingly, everyone in the Conservative
also thought bad.
The best polling one,
but the thing is, who have they got?
Was I think it was Penny Mordaunt, and she polled at an average of sort of -3.
Yeah, so just not as bad as the others.
But it's still a negative number. Like it's still people think she's going to be bad overall.
And that's the only thing I think that gives me a little bit of hope going forward is that the overall opinion of the Conservative Party as it stands
is horrendously
It's
low.
horrendous, but there is still a long way.
Things change. People forget.
And if you get someone in that perhaps does cut a bit of tax, does put a bit of money back in people's pockets.
Listen, we said...
That does a bit of damage control, distance themselves from Boris.
We said it before, people will just go, well, the bad stuff was Boris. So now that Boris is out, we're back to being fine. You think, no, the entire Conservative... And I realise I'm a lefty. And I realise it comes across that way a lot during this pod. And it will come across this way now. But I genuinely think this is not a left-wing position to hold. I genuinely think this is a centrist position to hold. That Boris Johnson has damaged this country. He's damaged the reputation of politics. That is a kind of centre-left position to stand.
Yeah.
But it's obviously his own party have decided that he's bad.
Yeah.
And he's got to go. So, and yet they enabled him. They made it happen, and they stood by and watched it happen. And it was only when the fire was starting to get a bit too close to them that they jumped ship.
Yeah.
We have to remember that.
No, absolutely. But like you, as you've said in previous pods, you're afraid that won't be the case when the time rolls around. But yeah, it's sad because it feels quite apocalyptic at the moment in the terms of like with everything that's going on and how little action will be going on.
Boiling. That's how I could fry on the way to my big mansion.
And yeah, I just think it's quite worrying at the moment. I'd like to leave it on a lighter note than that.
Listen, like we've discussed, I live in a mansion. Do you know how much it costs to heat a mansion? Okay, it's insane.
You don't need to fucking heat that at the moment.
I've had to sell like 3 butlers.
3? Just the 3? That's right, I still got 10 left.
Yeah, well, we shut down one of the wings. Everyone else has been relocated.
Well, dem's the breaks, bro.
I mean, he actually said dem's the breaks in his,
in
his
a resignation speech.
Resignation speech that I'm calling it, because he didn't resign.
Dem's the breaks. Oh, and there was just one little honourable mention I wanted to, because that was it. Did you hear what Boris called Sakia in PMQs?
Oh, it's not so beer, is it?
No, it was Captain Crasheroony Snooze Fest.
Brilliant.
Because he basically, like, Sakia was being a bit more on it than usual. But Boris, in typical fashion, is quite happy to go to any lengths to, and I think he said any of the 8 candidates that are remaining would wipe the floor with Captain Crasher Rooney Snooze Fest, and everyone erupted into laughter. And
probably worth
I was just
noting.
like, mate, how are you in nursery?
Maybe
like,
do you know what? Maybe it's worth. Maybe it's a lighter point that we can end on is that Keir Starmer and Angela Rayner, but Keir Starmer came out and said a few months ago that if Durham police issued him a fixed penalty notice, that he would resign because he strongly believed that he didn't break the rules. And Boris said the same thing, didn't break the rules, and then obviously did break the rules. And also Boris, by the way, said, I've had it on good authority that I will only receive 1 fixed penalty notice, and then only received 1 fixed penalty notice. That reeks of dodginess.
Of course it does.
But this last couple of weeks, Durham issued that they would. Yeah, that they were not pursuing it any further. They found that he did not breach any rules, no rules breached, and no.
And they said it was, and the reason was because it was in reasonable justification for the circumstances at the time to have a work meeting, and to have a meal. There was anyone who heard the story. It was, and this is the thing: we had a media that the Daily Mail, I think it was for James O'Brien said it was like 12 days.
Oh, they were relentless.
They just would not let up on it. And
when are you going to quit? When are you going to get some? And I think it's a reminder that there's a little bit of honour.
Yeah, and it's one of the reasons why I like Sir Keir Starmer, and it's one of his fall downs is the fact he doesn't play politics. That he holds himself to a higher standard, and I think more than ever right now with that's exactly what we need.
Do you think? Let me ask you this quickly before we go. Do you think the Sir Keir is working against him as a Labour?
Yeah, I think I've said from early on. I've always thought that might be for working class people. A little bit out of touch, but I think if people were to engage with his interviews, see him on PMQs, the way he comes across, just look into his past and what he's done with his life. He was the highest prosecutor in the country and did incredible things, and he has stood for something in his life, and I think he genuinely wants to make, whether you might agree with his stances on things, he wants to make a positive contribution to the country.
Well, I think that's
and that is far more, that on at the bare minimum is far more than what we've had.
I would draw the parallels between him and Theresa May, whereas I don't agree with all of his policies, obviously, but I do agree with more of his policies than I do with Theresa May's. But they both genuinely thought that they were helping the country. They both thought that they could help the country.
Yeah, Theresa May cried in her resignation speech because it genuinely.
And not Matt Hancock cried. She actually cried.
Yeah. It actually meant everything to her to have served as the Prime Minister. And look at Boris's attitude during the resignation speech, whilst Prime Minister, and now.
Well, it might be overlooking things.
All it means to him is the fact he's Prime Minister.
Might be looking too deeply into things, and I might be doing. But someone interestingly, in an interview in the last couple of days with Penny Mordaunt, and they said, "Do you remember how most prime ministers and whatever have talked about how it's an honour and it's a service and it's a service to the country and it's a duty?" She called it a prize in her interview, and there was a lot of... Like I said, maybe I'm reading too much into that and I don't want to...
Maybe, but I also think if you're someone who has decided politics is my career, all of them must have had the thought at some point, come on, it'd be good to hold the top position. Now, after a little while, some of them might lose the desire for that because they're like, fuck that for a game of soldiers.
I thought about this recently.
I've
toyed with the idea of politics. I have. Ultimately, I don't think I will. I'm not saying no. It might happen one day. I don't care if I get into Parliament or if I get into the Cabinet or if I get into Prime Minister. Yeah. What I care about is that we're actually making a difference to people's lives. So for me, it's about whatever party I choose.
The work they're doing and what you're working towards.
It's about making sure that the party gets in. So if I think there's a better candidate, I won't stand. If I think there's a better way to... Because it'll just
be about the process, not your journey through.
And it's about genuinely making a difference. And as long as you can genuinely try and make people's lives better and try and make the country a better, more livable place, that's the goal.
I think, if I'm being... the naive side of me would like to think that a lot of people that go in, or at least...
and there are a lot of backbenchers are like that.
Go in for exactly that reason, but I think some of them...
On both sides of the house, because I know I'm a very lefty, but on both sides of the house there's some very honourable people
And I think that was one of the reasons why I liked Kemi when I was listening to her, because she sounded passionate about making people's lives better. She might be different to me in terms of how she'd like to go about that, but I believed... she was sincere.
Suella Braverman, I think, was the name of the report.
Yeah.
that said that there was no institutional racism, and she supported it. And like you said, that may be in her experiences because she was privately educated and she was. But institutional racism is 100% a thing in this country.
It's ridiculous
so
to say anything other than
promote
that.
a thing that says that it's not, for me, and listen, regardless of whether she's black or white, for someone to stand there and say, as many of to say that institutional racism isn't a thing, as many of the senior Tories said at the time, that doesn't sit right with me.
No, it doesn't.
I can't,
because
you can't deal with a problem if you
deny it exists. Yeah.
Same with Brexit.
Yeah, and I think ultimately, the more I'm getting older, the more I believe, and it's why I try and be a bit more understanding of people like a Kemi that might have views I don't agree with, because I think ultimately, for us to get to a better place, we're going to have a sit down. Like, if we want to get things sorted, you have to have a conversation with those sort of people. You have to. And even I think she said, actually, it's more about how we're similar than we're different for her, I think. And
that's
and
just
I
her
agree with
words
that.
just don't match up with
Perhaps
policies that she's
I don't
promoted
know
in the
enough
past.
to agree or disagree firmly with that. I'd have to look into it more. Maybe it's something we can look into more deep, or I'll look into more deeply, and we can talk about on another political podcast.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy
if she's still
explore it
relevant,
more.
because it might be a case of she goes out in the
It's
next
on
round,
tomorrow.
and
And as we record this, they'll be having TV debates, which
yeah,
I won't be watching. I will be watching, to end on a lighter note.
yeah,
I noticed you're sporting an England shirt, my man.
yes.
I'll be watching the England women play Northern Ireland,
That's
which
fair.
dates this
I've
recording
got
of
to be
this
honest,
episode.
I've not watched any of it.
I'll tell you now, Norway, who are a top 10 side,
We beat them 8-0, didn't we?
8-0, absolutely trounced them.
Yeah,
It's a beautiful thing to watch.
yeah.
It's glorious. And Alan Sugar.
And that's a subject I'd like to talk
Got
about
to
in
with.
future, because I'd like to explore why I'm not interested in it. But obviously that's
It's interesting. I mean, like you said, it's not for here and now, but I'm not going to sit here and say that I find it as interesting and engaging as a men's tournament. But I am really enjoying it, and I am really glad that it's there, particularly because it's a nice summer, and it's like,
because one of the questions I would ask you is,
fuck.
and I'm pretty sure I know what the answer would be to it, was if there was a men's tournament on concurrently, I'm pretty sure I know what you would watch.
Yeah, I mean, it would go on like a game-by-game basis.
Yeah.
So there might be a particularly tasty tie in the women's game that I might be like, well, that's more interesting than, like, the USA versus Iran. No offense to the USA or Iran.
But if the two England national teams,
But if the two games are on a general
time,
thing, do you know what? I'd probably watch the women, because I find it so frustrating to watch the men.
that's fair enough. So not because you enjoy the women, it's just
because I don't enjoy the men.
that's fair. I could understand that.
No, but yeah, for sure. If the games of like an equal stature,
And that's just how Jake lives his life.
the men's game would win.
Yeah, that's fair. No, fair.
But yeah, it's been nice to have. It's been a nice summer. It's nice to watch some international football.
To be honest, I've sort of enjoyed a break from watching football. I've just been enjoying the sort of transfer merry-go-round that's going on at the moment. That's what I sort of delve into. But
Yeah, that's a whole thing.
Yeah. But we'll have to do a football one soon. I don't know how we're going to quite do it.
Zoom, baby.
That or we replace him. So guys, let us know.
Yeah. Send your applications to CrossingSwords19@gmail.com.
Yeah.
Use the subject heading, your new correspondent.
Yeah.
We don't even care how you spell correspondent.
I
You don't need to
I
spell
don't
it
think
correctly.
we can do that to Mr. Jones.
No. Look, I'm not saying we replace Ash, but I'm just saying...
We could bring in other people.
I'm just saying, let's look at some CVs. Let's look at some applications.
Yeah.
Let's just review it.
I mean, I'm pretty sure if we offered it to a recent addition to the Crossing Swords family, I think he would snap his hand off and say, fuck Ash. I mean, should we name and shame him?
You might as well. You did everything. You've
Alex.
done that boy dirty on this podcast.
Yeah, I proper did him dirty. It was one of our best podcasts, and I fucked it so hard.
Who would have thought, like, I've gone after Alex a lot on this podcast.
Yeah.
I would have thought if anyone was going to really do him dirty, it would have been me.
Yeah. But no,
Not
it was
even
me.
the case,
I
not
bent
the
him
case.
over right here on this table
Didn't even
and
spit.
just fucked him.
Didn't even spit.
Yeah. And on that note, guys,
And do you know what? It's you not only did you not give him a reach around, you slapped his own hand away whenever he went for it.
Yeah, you're not allowed any pleasure here
None at all.
whatsoever. No, you've just got to sit there and take it.
And on that image,
Yeah, so guys, let us know what you think, who you'd like in charge going forward, whether you think we're right, wrong. Yeah, let us know. And you can do that on Twitter at Swords Crossing, on Facebook at Crossing Swords, Instagram, CrossingSwords_podcast, and you can email us your thoughts, ideas and opinions at CrossingSwords19@gmail.com.
I would say if you have any, which one of us, first of all, do you think would make the best Conservative? That would be an interesting question.
I think
You.
me, not because I'm right leaning.
No, but I
because
find it
think
harder to contain my
You're
passions.
far more hardliner on like. I feel like I'd be more reasonable.
I find it very hard to contain my passions.
And like ultimately, it's not because I don't agree with the things you agree with, but it's because I think I'm far more willing to accept the reality of the. Like I would love for people to see things our way and to believe in things being, but it's incremental steps, and I think that's where I would be better than you.
Yeah, you could definitely play more down the middle than I can.
And I think the people would like me more.
Well, let's not get carried away here. Let's not just say things that we don't believe in.
I think the wider electorate would just dig what I have to offer.
Let's just look. You're taller.
I've got the big dick
that
energy.
Works for you. I mean, and you've got the big dick. And I'm not gonna. If you leaked that during your campaign, my God, what wonders that would do for your polling.
Do you know what, Jake? That's just not the politician I want to be.
No politician I'm going to be. I've got sex tapes ready to go.
Like you, I've liked the idea of being in politics in the past, but I actually don't think I'd be very good at it. I think it would bug me how dishonest it is.
Yeah, no, like I said, at the moment it's definitely a no, but
I would far rather be the guy behind you pushing your political career. Do you know what I mean?
I'd love for you to be on my team.
Yeah.
A little.
What do you mean on your team?
You could be the Dominic Cummings to my Boris Johnson.
Wow, never say that again.
I will never say that again. If you agree to take the position, I will never say that again.
What, agree to be your Dominic Cummings that you never say I'm your Dominic Cummings ever again? Am I going to leave in the same disgrace, having gone to a castle for an eye test? Or?
Well, no, because I'm not just going to have like piss ups during lockdown.
Oh, that's a shame. That was something
I don't intend to go into lockdown, but I do intend to have piss ups.
All right, I'm in.
Okay, and I just want to make clear the sex parties are not mandatory. You can attend. You don't have to.
Stop talking. Stop selling, bro.
You're already in.
Your chances.
You're already in. Okay.
Yeah.
And also, if you have any ideas for episodes, let us know.
Yes, please. We're always up for new ideas.
The episodes, the ideas man is running out. It's burning out.
Yeah.
It's very hard to
I
keep
was
up.
at one stage overflowing with ideas.
I'm just dragging him down.
It's a lower trick. Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot to carry, this body, and then Jake's as well, even though he's doing his best to lose weight.
It's very tough. Yeah, I've actually put on weight.
Have you?
Yeah.
Oh, that makes sense. That's why my back's been hurting.
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah, fat bastard.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. I won't deny it.
All right, guys. Take care.
Bye.